pulled over in Short Hills, New Jersey, 8 a.m. A poem by Ross Gay. It's the shivering, when rage grows hot as an army of red ants and forces the mind to quiet the body. The quakes emerge, sometimes just the knees, but at worst through the hips, chest, neck, until, like a virus slipping inside the lungs and pulse, every ounce of strength tapped to squeeze words from my taut lips, his eyes scanning my car's insides, my eyes, my license, as I answer the questions 3, 4, 5 times, my jaw tight as a vice, his hand massaging the gun. I imagine things I don't want to, and inside beg this to end, before the shiver catches my hands, and he sees, and something happens. There's a famous rabbinic teaching that in utero, every person learns all of Torah, all the values, morals, and ethics that should guide our lives. The teaching goes that at the moment of birth, one of God's angels descends and with a single touch to the upper lip, causes the child to forget all that was learned. All that is left behind is a soft indentation between the nose and the mouth, and a blueprint for our moral conscience in this world. And so we spend our lives on a journey to relearn and reincorporate that which we once knew. And in this process, we walk a path of teshuvah towards self-growth. There's always more to learn. We are all works in progress. But deep inside our souls, we know, and we've always known, what is just and right. In our country's foundational document, the Declaration of Independence, it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." But looking at the evolution of our nation up to and including this moment, we realize equality is in fact not self-evident. For we live in a world where some of the fundamental principles we are taught as truths are actually quite untrue. The experience that Ross Gay shares in his poem of being pulled over as a black man is not equality. The 3/5 compromise, redlining, this is not equality. The mass incarceration of black men who are disproportionately imprisoned compared to their white counterparts, it's not equality. Unequal COVID outcomes for people of color, which reflects a 2 times higher death rate than white Americans, it's not equality. Black women who are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women, it's not equality. There are gross disparities in education and income and housing and access to fresh food. This is not equality. And there's police brutality, where black Americans are shot and killed by police at more than twice the rate of white Americans. And this is surely not equality. And so, how amidst such brokenness, such deep ingrained and systemic racism, will we give life, breath, to equality, so that our country will reflect the truth that Black lives matter? When I say that Black lives matter, I mean Black lives are important and worthy and valued. Whether we are Democrats or Republicans, conservative or liberal, we can all agree that Black lives must matter because that's what's moral and right. As Jews, we know the value of each person, and we have a responsibility to make that clear and join the fight, this civil rights movement of our time, the drive to end racial injustice in our country. Yes, it's true. There are elements within the movement for Black lives that have been connected to BDS, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And I too remain concerned about this issue, and I will always speak up and speak out against anti-Semitism wherever it is found. And this is a learning process for all involved. Yet we also know that making change in social justice takes hard work and deep relationship building, in which we all become vulnerable. And the experience can feel messy along the way. But no matter where we are on the political spectrum, and I know an election is coming up, that does not negate our Jewish responsibility to promote justice and equality. So how will we use our privilege in this moment to move closer to the fundamental truth of equality? Standing here on Rosh Hashanah and looking ahead at these next 10 days and beyond, we are offered the gift of teshuvah, an opportunity to reconcile ourselves with the truth. Our teshuvah is important, not just on a personal level, when we repent and seek forgiveness in our own lives, but also on a more global scale in the pursuit of justice. Our teshuvah matters. In the Talmud, there's an extraordinary disagreement between the rabbis Hillel and Shammai, who ask, what should we do if a house is built with or on the foundation of a stolen beam? In a teaching, Rabbi Sherman summarized this dispute beautifully, saying, Shammai argues we must tear down the house to retrieve the beam and return it to its rightful owner. You can't build something beautiful on a lie. But Hillel has a different take, she says. What sense does it make to demolish that place? Let the thief pay for the beam, considering its full value as the foundation of a beautiful home. Both rabbis insist something must be done to rectify the injury. That is the only way for justice to be served. When we say Black Lives Matter, we acknowledge our country is in part built upon the foundation of 400 years of inequity and inequality. Our founding fathers invoked divine providence over this nation, and I believe in the possibility of creating a society where the sparks of all human beings are fully illuminated, guiding us closer to one another and to God. And we can begin to achieve this aspirational holiness by naming the broken truths around us. For in this journey towards truth and reconciliation, we engage in teshuvah. Since the murder of George Floyd in May, our country has seen a reckoning with race. We've witnessed incredible movement to reconcile racial disparities and lay bare the historical truths that America has lived with for so long. This process of reconciliation has begun to produce tangible change in policing and public life, in entertainment and sports, and these things matter. And I'm filled with optimism by the pace of this change, as many anti-racist paths have been forged in just a few short months after racist policies carried on since the founding of our country. But I can't let go of the question, why did it take so long? And I believe it's because owning up to the truth is hard. Owning up to the truth means recognizing that when we have said all men are created equal, we haven't lived up to that. Starting with the omission of women from this statement. Truth is admitting that our country has created a life where Black individuals can feel like they don't matter. Truth is recognizing that many of us benefit from generations of slavery and racist structures, practices, and policies. That there is a stolen beam under the foundation on which we have built. Maimonides teaches us that true teshuvah is finding ourselves in a situation for a second time and making a different choice. In our teshuvah toward repairing racial inequality, what different choices will we make? How will we act to help guide our country to make different choices? How will we change the course of history after 1, 2, 100 repetitions of wrongdoing? Awareness of the truth gives way to change. Our teshuvah matters. The first step for me on this journey has been learning and listening to others' stories and being in dialogue with people different from me. For reconciling the truth means more than just recognizing what is already apparent to us. It's also opening ourselves up to the truths we haven't experienced and listening deeply to the truths that we can only begin to understand. In our tradition, the word truth, emet, comes most famously after the Shema, a prayer speaking to the power of listening. In this core prayer are two unique letters that the scribes of the Torah wanted to emphasize. These two letters, ayin at the end of the first word and daled at the end of the last word, ensure that we pronounce the Shema correctly. But together they also create the word ed, which means witness. This central text in our tradition reminds us that the way to truth is through listening, through witnessing. Only after we stand witness and truly listen do we arrive at the truth. And by doing this truth work, by doing this work of teshuvah, we are showing the world what it means when we say that someone matters. We respect and give weight. We bear witness and listen. We walk together and return to a path of goodness and righteousness. And this is not easy. In fact, the High Holy Days are about standing amidst discomfort. My own discomfort in this moment is recognizing that I gave a sermon on this very topic 4 years ago. And Rabbi Sissenwein spoke about racial justice last year. And since that time, things in our country have only gotten worse. There is still so much for us to do. And yet, teshuvah is an extraordinary gift, and we can share it with the world by the way that we prioritize equality and justice now. And I'm proud that so many in our community are already engaged in this work through our Racial Justice Initiative, which creates educational programs that increase our understanding of the pervasiveness of racism and offers opportunities to awaken our own unconscious behaviors and attitudes. RJI is helping to develop anti-bias and anti-racist training for our staff and community, and continues to encourage advocacy efforts, which help us put into action anti-racist policies. We also continue to foster our connection to communities of color in Boston's Grove Hall neighborhood, as well as nurture meaningful relationships through our Partakers Prison program. And another amazing example of the impact of RJI is our involvement in the Religious Action Center's nonpartisan Every Voice, Every Vote initiative, which has mobilized almost 200 TBE congregants to send over 14,000 postcards to low-propensity and disenrolled voters across the country. Along with the Reform movement and over 800 URJ congregations, together we walk a path towards becoming a fully anti-racist community of Reformed Jews. Even more change can happen when each of us, wherever we are, makes a choice this year to engage in this critical work. As a first step, I ask each of us to take time over the next 10 days to reflect on our teshuvah, to listen, to learn, to explore how we will engage in this work. And more resources will be coming to you soon. Ijoma Oluo, the author of So You Want to Talk About Race, writes, "The beauty of anti-racism is that you don't have to pretend to be free of racism to be an anti-racist. Anti-racism is the commitment to fight racism wherever you find it, including in yourself. And that's the only way forward." See, we don't have to be perfect, blameless, guiltless to be an anti-racist, but we must do something. Our tradition teaches us that we may not be able to complete the work, but neither are we free to abstain from it. We must allow our teshuvah to transform ourselves and our world This is our Jewish obligation. And so in this new year of 5781, may we return to our most fundamental truths, the truths bestowed upon us before we even came in this world. With the work of teshuvah, we can return again to the blueprint for moral living, the moral living that we possess within ourselves, in our hearts, and in our souls. Our teshuvah matters. Justice and equality depend on it. Shana Tova.